So I was thinking about calling this Raven's Beak.
Cute. I like it.
Is that good?
Yeah.
So do we want to coin it like welcome to Raven's Beak?
Yeah. Sure. I think it's cute though.
So how do podcasts start?
Like this usually. Just people
Just milling around?
just people farting around until somebody says something brilliant. And then they add your intro like they knew what they were going to do the whole time.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're off to a rip-roaring start.
I think we just go into it. I don't think we need to do a big thing to the
Yeah.
camera or anything. I'm Matt Slagle. I'm the resident GM here at Raven's Keep. And you are?
I'm Kim Slagle, and I'm married to him.
Tragedy. Okay, so we have a shared experience getting into D&D.
You got into it before I did, though.
About 2 hours before you did. Okay, so
Yeah.
my cousin got me into D&D, and
That's right, Steven. It's your fault.
that's right. Stephen R. Wilson. I'm not going to say your real last name. Yeah, I was introduced to it by way of, like most people nowadays, Critical Role. And I was, the video that was shown to me was the charity game they played with Stephen Colbert for Red Nose Day. And I could not believe what I was watching, that there's actually, because my experience with games, was board games. It was Monopoly and Tripoli and move the pieces to get to the end of the track.
And those were none of the games that I was interested in. I still remember painfully white knuckling Monopoly because people felt like you had to play Monopoly.
Right. Well, I couldn't believe that there was a game that allowed you to let your imagination be the board, and the piece that you're moving around is the character you created just out of thin air.
Yeah.
And when I watched them play, I was so bought in to the illusion of imagination and the setting that they had talked about. I mean, it was an hour and a half long. Our sessions are 2-3 hours. Their typical campaign sessions are over 4.
Yeah.
This was an hour and a half, and the premise was so basic. The characters were
already established for the most part.
Already established. Yeah. But I was so bought into the idea that the imagination was given license to take the forefront, and that was such a new concept to me, that I couldn't put it down. It was finally I feel like I found something that I could actually do and actually play and actually get my mind around.
Yeah.
And then I came home to you and immediately wanted to watch it again with you.
Yeah.
What was your kind of first vibe and impression of the game?
I remember at first I didn't want to watch it because another friend of ours had played Critical Role a few years ago for us. And it was no, I don't feel like there was much telling what it was before we sat down.
Yeah, that's right.
In front of it. So to me, I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's boring. All I could remember was because they were in the middle of a campaign and we had no context to what was going on, and it was 4 hours long.
Right.
So I remember at the time being like, well, that's dumb. And so when you said originally, let's watch this, it's really cool, I was like, no, it's not. But there in our marriage, a lot of the times Matt finds something really cool and then persuades me into it, and then I become into it too. So it works out.
I'm a trendsetter.
But I do remember for that one, the story was good, and it was nice to be right at the front of it. Yeah. I think that was the difference.
And to understand it,
Yeah.
from a gameplay and mechanical standpoint.
Well, we didn't then. But what was cool about that is I felt like through watching it, you kind of got an idea. We were like, oh, so they reacted really bad when you rolled low. Okay, so that's bad. And then I was like, oh, natural 20. They say that a lot. So that's apparently really good. That's a critical success. That's awesome. So I feel like we did pick it up pretty fast when it came to just watching it. But it's also funny to me because like we watched Big Bang Theory religiously and still had no idea really what D&D was, just a bunch of nerds with clipboards. So I feel like it's funny that we had such a negative reaction and then it ended up being something that we ended up falling in love with.
Yeah, well, I mean, the understanding of it outside of the context of you're staring at a YouTube playhead that says 4 hours and 38 minutes.
Yes.
Like, I don't know anybody who would jump into the deep end and hang on for the whole time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that when I was opened up to the game, I'm like, obviously everybody's heard of Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, that's, it's been a phenomenon for decades and decades. And then obviously the resurgence with, Stranger Things bringing it into the limelight now.
And it's interesting to me because I've heard of people who've played this game for like years of their life, and I had never really heard of Dungeons and Dragons unless it was like a joke, like oh, those people play Dungeons and Dragons, or like they play D&D, and like it was a laugh topic. It was never like an in-depth, like I don't ever remember knowing really how it worked until we found it.
I feel like I had to be shown. If the concept was just told to me, like, there is no board really. It's, you can play theater of the mind. I mean, you might have a map here and there. There might be miniatures here and there, but a lot of it is just this kind of, it's like the cloud, nobody understands it.
It's like that video of Deborah Roll. Right?
It's Deborah Ann Woll.
When she explains it is like the best explanation because
it's perfect.
And I think for me, one reason I just immediately was drawn to this whole thing was because you could create a character, and I did theater for so long. Like in school, I would do theater and I loved it because you got to go from scratch and create a character and make it yours.
Yeah.
But what's awesome with this is you don't have a script. Like you get to say the things you think that the character would say instead of being tied to something that maybe not necessarily you see the character, which I thought was it was fun for that reason to me.
That brings up a question then. Now that we had discovered it, what was it like to finally play our first game? Because we had watched a lot of Critical Role and really familiarized ourselves with the community.
I got really discouraged at first in terms of like making the character sheet. Because we had written all these backstories and like we got our characters and we were over there like making our characters on like the character creator sites, and like we knew what they looked like, we knew their backstories, we knew all of these things, but then it came down to, okay, now we have to put numbers on a page. And I'm not a math person, and so I originally was like started to feel a little sick to my stomach because I was just like, how am I going to get through this page Steven, his cousin, was our first GM, and he did an amazing job, and he was really patient with us. So, like, shout out to Steven, because, I mean, I think you need a good GM who's going to be patient and understanding.
And re-explain a
million times until they beat their head against a wall.
Yeah. Well, I definitely felt like once we sat down with a group and played our first game, it felt like the pressure cooker had been ready to blow for a while of watching all this stuff on YouTube and like familiarizing ourselves with the world and the community and the game itself. And then finally getting to sit down and play. Like, I remember being in the car driving to shoots and practicing the accent for my character, which happened to be like kind of your average, like,
okay, I think it's only fair that we talk about our first characters too, because they were such a part of our lives. They're our first.
Okay, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You already talked about the accents. I feel like you need to go first.
When I was coming up with my first initial character concepts, I way overwrote their backstories. I mean, I had like a novel in my notes app, like talking about like, dialogue exchanges between characters, and like it was ridiculously
His
too
favorite
much.
food.
Yeah, it was like my own fan fiction for characters that don't exist yet. It was weird. Um, so the first character I actually designed, who I thought I would be playing, was not who I ended up playing, but the character
Yeah.
that everybody thought was most like me, more of like my secondary or backup character idea, was the one that ended up winning
Which
out.
is funny because that happened to both of us. We both
Yeah.
wrote a first character and then we both went with our second characters. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, me too.
Oh.
My first guy was very brooding and didn't, speak unless spoken to, and like was on
Yeah.
this revenge plot and all this other stuff. And I think as a story on its own was gripping. Like I like his backstory,
Mhm.
but to play that in a long form game or campaign, just I don't think would have been me or would have been fun.
It wouldn't have been fun.
But my second guy, Grimmel, was a dwarf who
What is his full name?
Grimmel Brandy Mulland.
Who ended up
He's-
becoming an NPC
Yes.
on our campaign.
Yes, I ended up using him as an NPC in our campaign much later down the road. He's a good time. He's a dwarf who doesn't want to be the first to kill on a battlefield. He wants to heal and he wants to fix weapons and he wants to be supportive, and he was primarily raised by his mother because his father was off to battle, and he loves to cook. He loves to, he believes in the sanctity of breaking bread at the table as a sign of fellowship and respect, and a way to show love to others. And so he's very
and one
much
of the ways too, I feel like when we did our one shots, that your character would actually like try to solve conflict, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, as a peacekeeper.
Yeah.
And sidebar, as an NPC in the campaign, owned the Chew and Snooze Tavern.
That's right. Chew and Snooze Challenge.
The Chew Challenge, yeah, that we ended up revisiting quite a lot, and he ended up becoming, for those lore junkies out there for D&D, he ended up becoming the leader of Daggerford, which is a small town on Sword Coast.
Of artificers.
Yep, little village of artificers, and he was a blast. I'm gonna miss him moving forward. But what about your first character?
My first character, again, I had two different ones. My first idea was an old gnome barbarian because I didn't understand the magic of D&D. And I also felt a little funny about it at first. So I went with, her name was like Uma the Luma or something.
Oh,
Luma
yeah.
the Uma. And
Yeah,
she was like a grandma, and
Yep.
but my whole thing for her story was just that when she rages, she becomes young again. So she looks
That's
very
right.
young when she rages. And like, I thought she was a cool idea, but there just wasn't much to her story.
Mm-hmm.
But Zora will always have a special place in my heart. She is a character that I feel like is the character that she's the person I want to be. She's young. She doesn't
You're
have any.
young.
I'm not young anymore.
Well, it's all relative to an 11-year-old. You're not.
Yeah, I'm but she's young, and she is kind of snarky, and she like knows the things that she wants, and she gets the things that she wants, and she was an outcast from her home and has been basically used her whole life from the people who were supposed to love her. And she made a deal with a wizard, got really badly scarred on her face so she could get out of a wedding that she did not want to or marriage she did not want to have. And I loved playing her, and every time I still bust her out for any one shot I can because I love playing her. She's just fun. Playing a rogue is like where it's at. Half elf rogue build was like where it was at, and
It's a
I
great
would
build.
do it again any day, anytime.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of jumped in the deep end with that first game with like, I came locked and loaded with an accent. You came locked and loaded with this attitude of a character that, we really kind of had to bring it that first time out to the table. And it really set the tone of like, I I'm not against virtual games because I get like I love the idea that we can play this amazing game like across distances. That's a really special thing,
Yeah.
and we should be very thankful for that ability. However, there's just nothing like table energy.
Well, it's just, again, it comes down to like what it is in theater is like you can do a performance, but it's not as much fun unless you have other people's energy to feed off
Yeah,
of.
yeah, you need it.
Otherwise, you're just standing on a stage doing the best you can. And sometimes that's not enough.
At least in the way we play. I mean,
Yeah.
there are games played where it's a lot more just like that kind of mechanical boardless board game
Yeah.
where they like the math and they it's just your character sheet and your character ends at the sheet.
Yeah.
And I feel like our experiences with this game are very much based on like I want to make a movie with my friends. I want to
Yeah.
experience every emotion that occurs when watching a really good film, but I want to create it in real time with my friends at the table.
Well, and that comes back to, I think, something that's important. And one of the reasons why we gravitated so much towards it is like when Matt and I met, we sat down at a coffee house and basically decided we just kind of spoke our hopes and dreams and things that we were interested in. And we came out with Night Terrors,
Yeah.
which was like mini horror shorts because we just thought that that was so much fun. At the time, I was really into doing makeup. Matt obviously had all of this background in film, so it just made sense to do it. And of course, being young and naive, we were like, we're going to start this YouTube channel and everybody's going to want to see everything we do.
Instant success.
And it's going to be easy to have everybody who wants to do all the roles and do all the things.
Yeah.
And it was not. But I think I think that is one of the reasons that you and I immediately felt like that though again because, we're both parents.
Mhm.
Like our kids are our life, but they're exhausting. We have 2 boys and they are amazing.
Yeah.
Crazy, creative little geniuses, but they are exhausting. And we forgot how to be people outside of our kids sometimes
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that again leads me right into like what it has meant to you having D&D in your life. And you
Yeah.
just kind of answered it where
Yeah.
when you're at this age with all the responsibilities that we both carry, running a business, caring for a house and a mortgage and expenses, y'all know what it's like to survive.
Yeah.
And we're extremely hands-on with our children. We homeschool. You're
Yeah.
a full-time stay-at-home mom. If I'm not out shooting, I'm working here at
Yeah.
home. So being that hands-on, it can definitely be a challenge to make and maintain friendships.
Well, and also I feel like when you have kids, sometimes a part of yourself changes just because you're trying to make these little people and like you're trying to like figure out what all that looks like. And I think that the one thing that's been really cool about this for me is that I'm showing our kids that they are so important and they are like the number one priority. But I'm also showing them that at the same time, like it is good for mom and dad to take these breaks so we
Yeah.
can come back as better parents because it fuels our creativity, our friendship, the ways that we can just relax for a few hours
Yeah.
and laugh and just like have those moments. And like they actually have become to love our game nights too.
And we ran a
because-
one-shot for them, for
yeah,
the boys.
Yeah, we played with them and that was really fun.
Our boys got to hunt down a primal werewolf.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they got to be the heroes, and there was something so fun to watch in that.
In that Mason was trying to basically be a DM.
He had a
He
hard
did not
time
get the concept.
not writing the story on top of me.
And then our youngest kept running off because he's
He's a little too young for it.
yeah, he was
but-
just like, I thought this was going to be different.
But isn't that an interesting lesson to teach them that even in the chaos or in the unknown or in the danger of the story, like you can still be a hero, you can you can save the day, you can be strong, you can care for other people in the story, and like there's so much balance that comes with like the lessons learned in playing a game out like that, and of course how we're playing it too, like the characters
Mhm.
we play with them, and showing them kind of what mom and dad like to create.
Yeah.
And that was important to me when we started talking about recording our sessions and putting it out as a podcast. Was like,
Mhm.
it's not that our games are childlike,
Mm-mm.
but they are clean, and they're going to stay
Well,
clean.
and they're fun. Like they're just fun. I feel like we struck gold with our people. We
Hmm.
struck gold with our friends. I mean, we had people in our life, in my life, that I haven't seen in years that show up, and I get to see them once a week, if not more. And it's, to me, it's like incredibly special. Like it's just these people, and some of, like, one of them I knew of but didn't know super well, and now like he's one of my best friends, and it's great that like we have like we just have something really special here.
Yeah.
Like I can't say enough like how appreciative I am. I mean, they come to our house every week without fail.
Yeah.
Um
They're committed.
and like they're so much fun. I'm just very grateful for our friends. Like we have really good people in our life.
Well, that was the whole thing with like coming out of our first game. It was like, I this is an addiction, in a healthy way. I mean,
Mhm.
it's addiction's a strong word with negative connotations, but it was something that, first of all, you can't do alone. So you got to make friends. You got to find a group, find somebody. We definitely struck gold at our table with the group that we have, and their level of commitment. They're all such good players and such good friends. We're very, very lucky. And going into our first campaign, of course, was daunting. I mean, I didn't know how to GM a campaign, and I felt, rewinding a little bit. It was that same cousin who laid some wisdom on me and told me that, usually the people who are looking to put a group together is the one who ends up running it.
Yeah.
Finding a committed GM is pretty hard to find.
Yeah.
Who doesn't already have a group.
Yeah.
And when we were putting ours together, I basically made peace with the fact that I think I'm going to try to run one. We ran the first episode or session of our campaign as kind of a one shot.
Mhm.
It was just like, hey, if this doesn't work out, at least I know we told a pretty cool little story, and that was it. And
Yeah, what was funny about, so the space was when we literally kind of did a dear Lord, if this is meant to be in our lives, like let's let it happen and things will go smooth. And they did and they didn't because we decided to make a tavern in our basement.
yeah,
Because we realized that if we hosted, then we didn't have to worry about sitters because that was a big thing for us.
yes,
And then we did not really have the best of luck with building the space, which is a long story that we won't go into. Um, but we finally finished it, did the final touches, and at that point we had been reaching out to all these people, and it was hilarious because we were just posting on like our Facebook pages, like trying
yeah,
to see who wanted to join, because at the time we didn't really know, but like his cousin was more into like the online games because of his work schedule. He couldn't really do the commitment that he needed to do, which was fine. But we were trying to get people, and at the time I was like, I just don't know if it's gonna work out. And then literally I get a message from Regine, and she's like, my husband's into D&D and I'm into D&D now, I think. And I've never played before, but I really want to try. And Regine and I were best friends in like elementary school,
yeah,
middle school, high school. Um, kind of had some distance, but she's just one of those people that is so incredibly special. And just like once she's back in your life, you're just thankful that she is.
yeah,
And so I immediately was like, yes. And I was excited to meet her husband, who is hilarious and I love him. Um, and that was great. And then I got a message from Jonathan's wife, who went to church with me, which was crazy because Jonathan went to high school with me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like I had double the people who were in my life that like, and they didn't even know each other when we knew each other, which was funny. So it was just, again, like God was just like getting these people in our lives. And it just, so as soon as Jonathan went to the table too, I was like, this is just so cool. And like, and then we eventually got Ryan, and Ryan went to high school with me apparently too at one point. So it's been, for me, it's like a blast from the past, but it's also all of these people that like God has placed back into my life to tell these amazing stories. And like, I think that's where my heart is with all of this, is that like, I used to love to write. And I always loved it better when I wrote with a friend, because if you get stuck, you have somebody to help you out, and it can be hard. And like Matt has written these amazing stories, and like he's always had these great ideas. And
Matt
so
meaning me.
Yeah. Matt meaning that one. So it made, to me, when you brought up being a DM, it just made sense. It's just your personality. It's something that makes sense for who you are. And like, you get to tell these amazing stories, and you don't get to just be one character. You get to be like 6.
Yeah.
Sometimes more.
It's great until somebody throws a curveball at me with some random NPC that I have to dig into my mind palace for an accent and a name. But that's part of the fun of it. And through improv, you know, some of the best moments have happened. The Chew Challenge was an amazing moment that I didn't write.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many of those that occur. Episode 1 of this new campaign, the Hey Bubba, that
Oh my
whole
gosh.
exchange.
We were all dying. And again, it's like that trust and that vulnerability and like the table energy. Like that night was hilarious.
The entire exchange was not intended on or planned for whatsoever, but yeah, that trust is everything, because it feels like you can just take off the training wheels.
Yeah.
And you can just be silly and be vulnerable and take the lid off. And, you know, it's that fearlessness, I think, that gives way to the biggest moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having the right group is everything. And we struck gold, and we have the right group.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
But, you know, the first campaign was, so we ended up doing, what was it, about 30 sessions?
Yes.
Maybe about 9 months worth, I think, roughly. Yeah. And that's pretty hefty right out the gate. I mean, we weren't doing any other sessions or games with any other groups. It was all in on that campaign, and it was.
But what was funny about that, though, because you said it first, we were going to start it as a one shot, because we were like, we don't know how committed everyone's going to be.
Right.
It might not work out. So I made a very big rookie mistake that I wish now I could correct, which was I had the one-shot mentality making my character.
Right.
And then I had to play this character for an entire campaign, and it got okay, but it was a little bit rough.
Yeah, she evolved a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the perfect allegory to like all of us finding our feet with.
Yeah, that first campaign.
We learned together.
That being said, though, at the same time, again, the people at this table are gold, and they've created amazing characters, because like Jonathan created a Loxodon named Ozrin, who I would live and die for because he just
amazing.
And
character.
Then Naledi, who is Regine's character, who was a rogue, who just halfling and just was
amazing,
just ballsy and awesome, and like stole things and checked for people's blood color, and
still never really I don't really know why, and I think that's the point.
Yeah, that's the point. And then Andy being Gowry, who just is this like awesome soldier fighter who also just eats whatever is in front of him.
Totally unaware of how deadly he was. Totally unaware.
Then we had Ryan, who came in like late to the campaign, and his character, why am I blanking on his character's name?
Varen.
Varen, yes. Varen was an elf, and he was awesome. And it was his first time playing D&D.
Yeah, props to Ryan.
Yeah, he just jumped right in with all of us.
He sat at the table. I want to say we were 20 to 21 sessions in.
Yeah.
I mean, he was there
He
for
was
the
at the
back
tail
like
end.
9 or 10.
Yeah.
And the extent of his D&D experience was basically restricted to Baldur's Gate and Critical Role, just like most of us.
Yeah.
And he had never played at a table before. Him and Jonathan are best friends, and they didn't know that they were each into D&D, I guess.
Yeah.
And he came in, and I had a session that was planned to introduce his character, but also like kind of throw him into the situation where he's been captured. He needs to work his way out. So I wanted active roles. I wanted him to get his money's worth out of the night.
Yeah.
But also like, this is what it is. This is the fullest extent of the experience here. And if you don't love it by the end of that night, then maybe it's not the table for you. And he loved it, and he crushed it through the end of that campaign. And then
honestly, he fit like right in.
Chill person, the personality is everything. And he did great all the way through the end of the campaign, and everybody did. The ending was perfect, but it was all still very much a learning experience. So when that campaign ended, it was okay. Now it's, nose to the grindstone of, we know that when we go into another campaign, we want to post it as a podcast. We want to release it. We want to continue with the weekly business that has been going great. But a couple of things came to my attention, which were a game that is not fully released yet. I believe it's still in beta, called DC-20, and then another one called Daggerheart. And
well, wait, we need to go back a step. So even before because we knew we were getting close to the end of our campaign, but you had been working on something before that to get ready for the next one.
Oh, my world?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ketra's my baby. I worked on building that map for, 9-ish months before we started the campaign.
Yeah.
And it was really it's my self-destructive approach to everything, which is, if I can, why not?
Yeah.
At least in the scope of this healthy game. Okay, let's just preface that. But it did come from, as a GM, I don't want to play from an adventure book.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that kind of defeats the point of D&D, and I feel like I don't want to put walls around our imagination like that.
Yeah.
However, as a player, I love the adventure books because I'm going on the adventure that professionals wrote, and I'm along for the roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
So it's two very different perspectives in that, right? But also, like, because I've GM'd and I know what goes into it, like, I have to really trust a GM that I'm going to be a player for that wants to homebrew everything. But that's why I also, like, halfway through our campaign, started working on my own world without any plans on ever going there in that campaign. This was just for the future. This was for our next campaign. And I want to give myself the due time to get it ready and to flesh it all out. Because to me, the challenge with homebrewing is to be able to answer any question your player might have about the world they're playing in.
Yeah.
That means to have a global understanding of every corner of it. If there's 8 continents, what are they called? What kind of people are there? What's the political landscape there? What's the religious
connections?
Yeah. What's the currency? If the currency is global, great. Make it easier on yourself. But if it's not, you better figure that stuff out for the benefit of you and your players.
Yeah.
And to me, I spent enough of those early sessions as a GM in scramble mode, trying to come up with the perfect NPC name, the perfect accent, the perfect, you rolled a crit fail. Now I have to have the perfect, like, consequence, or the opposite. You rolled a nat 20. Now I have to have the perfect thing that I give you. And it was all based around anxiety, and it was all based around pressure.
And I do feel like the other aspect to it was, like, near the end, I think we all kind of felt like D&D, as much as we loved it, was not, like, it stopped feeling like freeing and started feeling a little cagey.
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
creativity and the things that we wanted to do. Cause like
Yep.
we would get ideas of like, oh, can we do this? And then there's poor Matt trying to scramble to figure out, well, can they do that? Like, is that in the rules? Like, is there a way that we could make that happen? And like, you're a great GM for the fact that like you always tried to say yes to your players and make sure that like we were getting what we wanted.
Yeah.
But I know that a lot of the times that was not easy in the format of the game that we had.
Yeah, I try to operate on rule number one is never tell your players no unless it's game breaking.
Yeah.
And but again,
We got close.
we got close. It all boils back down to trust.
Yeah.
And you learn, and you have to be humble enough and vulnerable enough to say, guys, I'm still learning. This is not going to be perfect. This is not going to be exactly by the book, not for lack of trying, but for lack of knowledge and understanding and experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's in that experience that just comes from like knowing what consequences to give based on roles, or what rewards to give based on roles, or like what could be waiting in the next room.
Yeah.
But then it all changed when I discovered Daggerheart.
Yeah.
DC-20, first of all, for you DC-20 Kickstarter backers out there and fans, ridiculously awesome. I mean, that dude has built something spectacular, and it answers a lot of the things that people have maybe wanted to adjust in D&D but didn't know how. But something unlocked in my brain with Daggerheart. And it was almost like a very similar feeling or experience that I had when I discovered D&D at all, which was like just this unshackling of like everything. I mean, yeah, there's mechanics and rules, but coming off of D&D, and not to mention like we went to level 10 in the campaign, and then we did a level 21 shot from the first campaign,
and that, honestly,
which was craziness.
It was so funny because we did that after our one shot, didn't we?
No, it was the level 21 shot for the first campaign characters, and then Daggerheart one shot.
But we didn't we do some kind of combat or something just to kind of see how we felt?
At session 0, yeah, we did.
Okay, so after that session 0, I immediately like really felt a relief about Daggerheart. Like there was just like a resting in it. And because at first I was really concerned. I think all of us were concerned that we would miss D&D.
Yeah.
Or like it would,
for sure.
Or it just wouldn't work. The mechanics wouldn't work for our group. But then we did the level 20 D&D one shot because we had a really cool idea for one shot. We thought it'd be fun, and we were like, great, we can get all those spells and like all those cool moves that we've always wanted to do. And there were some there, but combat took forever. And every single, like, the vibe at the table changed, like, instantly. Like, it just felt like we all knew it. And by the end of it, we all were like, I can't wait to play Daggerheart. Like, it was that sudden.
Well, and I feel like, looking at my planet that I was building this world, and I wanted to not only build my own world, but build my own races and creatures that would inhabit that world. And of course there's your typical human, elf, dwarf, halfling, that business, but
it fits so much with the world you were already creating.
It does. And just the freedom that it gives in how the characters are built and how the creatures are like formatted allows me to kind of wiggle my stuff into it as we play the campaign.
Absolutely.
And then of course, I mean, just, I have yet to talk to somebody about Daggerheart and hear back, but I just really miss initiative. Like I haven't heard that once. And that's all fine if you love that stuff.
Yeah.
But what I discovered at our table was everybody's there for a narrative experience.
Yeah.
And the mechanics should support it, not usurp it. And when we got to the end of our campaign, it felt like there was just so much to manage, and there were so many descriptions to read and slots and points and this, that, and the other. It was just, I felt like you couldn't sneeze without making a roll for it.
Well, and I think the other thing was too, honestly, is I think that when you think about a battle and you think about a fight, you don't think, okay, well, wait, I can't hit you yet because I got to wait my turn. You don't think of the person just standing there waiting to maybe do something. It just doesn't make sense. And for us, like, there would be so many, or like, we would have an opportunity where we think, oh man, this is what I want to do. But then somebody else goes in and they basically get them down to like 2 hit points,
Right.
or like do basically take them out in 2 seconds, and then you're like, "Oh, I can maybe hit them."
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Well, yeah, and there were so many things that I felt needed answered for myself as a GM, but also for my players,
yeah.
um, that I discovered within Daggerheart. Is it the TTRPG to end all TTRPGs? Who am I to say? I'm not a professional GM. I've known about D&D. Well, I've known about it my whole life, but I've known
Yeah.
about playing it for a year and a half, and I'm woefully unqualified for any of this. But through my obsessive hours of researching Daggerheart, building the worlds, building sheets, character sheets left and right, uh, I'm very, very confident in feeling like I don't want to go back and I don't want to go anywhere else. I
Yeah.
feel like it's the perfect storm of how we play at our table. But
Yeah.
anyway, I could sit here all night and sing Daggerheart's praises.
Yeah.
But in discovering Daggerheart, we started our new campaign.
Yes, we did.
We have played only a measly 3 episodes of it so far. Episode 4 is happening tomorrow night as of the recording of this podcast. How do you feel it's going?
I love it.
It's a big change.
It's a big change, but it's one that I have really enjoyed. I think what also helps is, again, like the trust, the feeling that we have at the table, the friendship that we already have. Like that already makes going into a new game slightly easier because we're all at the same level.
Yeah.
And that really helped. But then also just the fact that, like, that session 0, do your session 0s. There is
Oh, my
nothing
goodness.
more important than sitting down with your friends or your table mates and just fleshing out characters together. It's one of my favorite things of any. Like, I only did one GMing experience. At some point I will do it again, but I did a Candela Obscura last year for the first, or was it this year? It was this year.
January.
Yeah, so the first time ever I did this, and I loved the character creation aspect because you're in there and you're creating these characters and they have these relationships and like they have these things that they want, and it's my favorite thing. So after session 0, I was like, this is going to be amazing. I cannot wait to play with these characters. It's such a weird list of people and somehow it works.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely like a whimsy to how Daggerheart is
Yes.
approached, just in the artwork and in the character options. But going back to the world that we built, is you homebrew a setting so that you can play whatever fantasy world your players want to play out.
Yes.
I know that our friend Andy is obsessed with pirate stuff.
Mhm.
We've got Jonathan, who built a Bloodborne Van Helsing character.
Yeah.
And they are in 2 very different universes, but on a planet that we built. Why in the world not have your cursed village, and then you've got your pirate island in the ocean? Like, why in the world not? Like, that's I think something that is stolen from us the older that we get. And not to get too dramatic, but like the world steals innocence so quickly.
Yeah.
And a part of that is the magic of creation and of creativity and of wonder.
Mhm.
And I think people forget when they become adults, and your imagination doesn't pay your bills. It doesn't make you money unless you use it to, in your line of work or whatever.
Yeah.
But just the power behind the imagination. And one of the things that I learned when I got into D&D was just how much it's used and played therapeutically.
Yeah.
How much, like, there's prison games going on. There's games going on in sick wards and children's hospitals. I mean, there are layers to this game that are actually effective.
Yeah, and I mean, there are things that, like, maybe you're working through personally that your character also finds a way to work through at the table.
Yeah.
And it just gives a voice maybe to parts of you that you weren't really ready to speak up on, which is really nice.
And we're in a very privileged and blessed position that we have a table that can be a safe space for that. And
Yeah.
we all have stuff we go through in a week. And at the end of the week on Friday night, we know we're all going to come together.
Mhm.
We're going to play this silly game and feel a whole lot better about things, or, just celebrate what is going well and just enjoy the silly chaos that ensues with our best friends.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest thing, because like you had spoken earlier about digital, and I will say the biggest hang up I have about digital is,
You're talking about virtual games?
yeah,
Yeah,
virtual
yeah, yeah.
games, is just the fact that in this world, I feel like it is less and less common for us to get together and to speak
Yeah,
face to face and to do things like just face to face, like it's all on the screen. And I think sometimes I think that's a good thing for certain things, but then for other things, I feel like we are lacking in this connection. And storytelling is something that's such an ancient kind of thing. Like it's
right,
been since the
right.
beginning. Like, I mean, when you just learn about like the writing of the Bible, and like the scribes had to like memorize and write everything exactly the way it happened in order to continue the story and to make sure everybody got the right version. Like, I think that sometimes like doing a virtual makes that miss. Like, you don't have that connection or like the ability to write the story in a way that you understand it because you're on a screen and
Yeah,
you can't fully like
there's a
get one person.
disconnect.
Yeah, and you don't have to play a character. You could just literally, like, we've done a few of those where like we're doing these, Matt and I are giving it our all, and the other people's like, he shoots a bow. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right,
And
that's the way
nobody
you.
has their webcams turned
Yeah.
on except us.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's like, and if that's the way you wanna play, like, that's the way you wanna play, that's fine.
right.
But I do think that there's something really special about, like, these connections, and, like, I mean, our table has been like, we do cookouts, like, we do things outside of this table
Yeah.
because they are our friends, and when we say, like, "You're our friends, you're like our family," they're that's exactly what it is,
Yeah,
like,
we
they
mean it.
are a part of our lives, like, daily.
Yeah, I think the goal is to enrich each other through storytelling, through
Yeah.
collaborative storytelling. And so far it's been so much more than what I thought it could be for me personally, for us,
Yeah.
for our friends.
Yeah.
Um and all I think about every week is like I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just crazy just between what you come up with and then what we all come up with together. It's
It's
just really, it's
the
awesome.
best.
I love that.
It's the best.
It's the best part of our day.
Well, this has been great.
Yeah.
This is I
We just had a conversation like we do on our couch,
all the time.
but like with
Just
way
with
more lights and
microphones and
setup.
lights and cameras on us, and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we do more of these. I want to get everybody in the hot seat, and I want to talk to everybody about it all the
Yeah.
time. And
I mean, we need to do like a Hey Bubba's Corner or something.
yeah, like Bubba's, yeah, something with Bubba.
Hey,
Like
Bubba.
Bubba's Hour or
Yeah.
something. If you haven't watched the campaign,
Yeah.
you're missing out on experiencing Bubba.
It is an experience.
Yeah, for sure.
For
Well,
sure.
Thanks for coming by
Oh, you're
Raven's
welcome.
Keep. And
It was on my way home.
yeah, until next time.